About to get right into
Their
it, man.
intentions are to kill innocent people. They did that in the training and the support of the attack on Israel. I deal with reality, not what they say in propaganda when people have guns to their heads. You look at their reality. They were in charge of killing more American troops when we were in the Middle East, backing it, supporting it, aiding it. The bombs that were used, the roadside bombs, they were all coming out of Iran. They gave safe haven to the people that were killing American troops. They were proud of that. That is who they are. Yes, it is. Go back and look at the reports. You look at Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and where were they getting the information, the intelligence, and the technology to kill American troops with roadside bombs? They were getting it in Iran. They were getting aid and support. Hamas, Hezbollah. I'm not going to sit here and act like just because it comes from you that I'm wrong. That I have the propaganda right because it's reality based in what happened, sir. And the
Guys, this is so sad, man. And these people are on payroll to spew a bunch of false information and propaganda to justify a war with Iran, to get the American public on their side, when nobody in America, agrees with this war unless they're morons or are not America first, right? Because we know the severe consequences of a full-blown war in the Middle East and in Europe in general too, These people don't even have their facts straight, guys. These people are on payroll to make Israel and America look like they're doing the right thing by holding these nuclear talks with Iran and possibly directly attacking their nuclear program that's going to inflame the entire region. And this guy fails. This guy's trying to make a correlation and a connection between Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the IRGC in Iran. They're completely two different organizations. I mean, dude, they don't align theologically. They've never been allies. They don't share intelligence. I mean, this guy's a moron. Holy shit. But see, it's wild because these people come on these programs and they get absolutely exposed to the point where it's like, it's making it worse. It's like, dude, at least get your facts straight, you idiot. But let's keep watching this clip, man. This gets
reality
spicy.
Is Iran loves terrorist organizations in the Middle East that will go after American interests. True or false? When America's in the Middle East, Iran is backing the terrorists that come after us. True or false? Every time in my lifetime, they've gone after American interests. And they do it in Israel as well. So this idea that you can sit down with these people like they are sane, when clearly the leadership is a terrorist nation that wants to kill Americans and Jews, you cannot allow them to have a nuclear program because they are terrorists. They're not responsible citizens in the world. They're not a responsible government in the world. I'm not naive enough to think they'll ever be.
Okay, well, listen, Pierce, let me respond to a couple things here.
Hang on one second. Hang on one second. Scott,
these are the idiots that trick the American public or that are tricked by their donors, and let's just be honest, like the Zionist neocons, the radical Zionists, into going to 10-year, 20-year wars in the Middle East. And for no reason, and then come out, with nothing, literally just trillions of dollars spent, American soldiers and lives lost, and the elitists have gained all their money and profits from the, obviously the military industrial complex, that mafia of individuals who profit off of war, constant state of war. Let's get into what Professor Marandi says, man. Holy smokes. This asshole Pierce set Marandi up. You're going to see he's going to bring another guest on who's even more clueless.
Iran needs to restore trust to America. It's the United States that is waging war after war. And I think your guest probably has lost a lot of money on the stock market. Otherwise, I think he needs therapy. But beyond that,
which
it's
country
quite clear
chants death to America? Your country. Your country chants death to America. You want to talk about trust? I don't know what the hell the stock market has to do with the fact that I have a problem with a country that chants death to America with the Ayatollah leading the chant in front of the entire country. You want us to trust you again. Stop chanting that. Stop sponsoring terrorism.
I really think you do have psychological problems. But if, Pierce, if you allow me, otherwise I don't know why I'm on this panel. It's quite clear that the problems between the United States and Iran come from the United States. The United States carried out a coup in Iran, imposed the Shah, built the secret police, the Savak. Then the United States supported Saddam Hussein in his war against Iran. The West gave Saddam chemical weapons. I survived 2 chemical attacks. One was mustard gas, and one was a nerve agent. And the West collectively was behind Saddam. Then they attacked
Did you guys
Iran
hold Americans hostage in our embassy in 1979, just out of curiosity, or do you just guys whitewash all of that with the propaganda?
Yes, that's a good point, actually. Students took the embassy because the United States, your regime...
It wasn't students. It was the Shah regime, and the team, buddy. Come on.
Your regime gave refuge to the Shah, who was a mass murderer, who had slaughtered people on the streets, and they wanted him back. The United States was aiding and abetting a mass murderer who they were supporting. So
you guys aid and abet mass murder every day when you support terrorist organizations. Will you ever stop supporting the terrorist organizations? Forget America for a second. You guys kill innocent people in the Middle East. You guys chant death to Israel. So forget America. Will you stop supporting the terrorist organizations?
Yeah, your government is the government that supports terrorists. Your government helped create
I actually feel bad for you.
Tulsi Gabbard.
It must be miserable living in a prison where if you speak out against your government, you will be one of the disappeared ones. Because that's what happens to people that stand up to your terrorist government. You disappear.
That's funny. That's funny because the majority of journalists who have spoken out about this war, you know, from whether it be Scott Ritter to some of the people on X, they've gotten their homes raided. They've gotten their computers and all their electronics seized and then checked by, you know, the FBI, and they're on like a fucking list. Very ironic that he would mention that when this is all happening here in the United States, guys. There are people getting literally they're focusing on kicking student protesters out who are advocating for peace, instead of the illegal immigrants that Trump has campaigned on getting rid of, which they're saying it's literally about the same pace, if not less, you know, people being deported than his previous term. So
arrested at you're right. Where people in your country are arrested.
I'm free, my friend. I can say whatever I want to in America, unlike with you in Iran.
You can say whatever
you want. Dude, your government propaganda. I feel bad for you. Like, freedom is not what you do.
If you don't want me to talk,
let me ask you this question: Has your country? Let me ask you this, Professor. Professor, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever disagreed, ever publicly, with your government in Iran on any one major issue? Have you ever spoken out, or are you so afraid of your government that you know if you do, you will be one of the disappeared ones?
Since I'm sure your problems.
One example, just deeper, one example. You don't have one because you can't. I feel bad for you.
But if you knew, if your problems are deep and serious, but if you knew Persian, all you have to do.
Do you notice how he's under duress here? He cannot answer that question
online, and you can go and watch me in Persian
Let me jump
and
in.
see what I say about different administrations. But Pierce, if you don't want...
let me jump in. But no, I do want to.
United States. Don't invite me. Don't invite me.
No, Professor, I often invite you because I want to hear the perspective from Iran, as you know. But it's an interesting question that Ben puts there, which is we're having a kind of panel debate here, which is unlikely to be tolerated in Iran in a broadcast manner. Can you think of anything right now, as Ben said, where you would criticize your government, for example? Would you be prepared to do that publicly now or not? Or is there a feeling that you can't do that with the Iranian regime?
Pierce, Be mature. Grow up. You are
He
the
can't.
person
He can't.
who
He'll
I
disappear.
invited to come to Iran. You are the go take your medicine. You are the person who I invited to come to Iran to visit the country, and you refused the invitation. So you're not in a position to
Because he's
ask
not
such
an
questions.
idiot.
You're not
I
a
wouldn't come to
serious
Iran either. I
journalist.
don't want to disappear like you're afraid of.
Well, I'm glad you won't come because we'd have to spend a lot of money on therapy for you, and we have enough problems because of the sanctions. But that aside,
let me
ask you another question.
Yes,
Let me ask one other
Scott,
question.
because
Is there
this
any
guy really
terrorist, is there
he
any
won't let me
terrorist
talk.
activity that you condemn that your government has funded? Do you condemn the attack on the innocent people in Israel or any other attack by any terrorist organization that you guys have funded? Is there ever a moment in Iranian history in your lifetime where you say supporting that terrorist organization, funding, aiding, training, you would condemn the attacks and the death of innocent people anywhere in the world?
I condemn ethno-supremacism and an apartheid regime, and I condemn this Holocaust, and
Can't
I
answer it,
condemn
Pierce.
what
He's bought
Tulsi
and paid for
Gabbard
by the regime.
admitted that the United States supports
he
and
is bought
supported
and paid
ISIS
for
and
by
Al
this regime.
Qaeda, and they brought them
sad.
to power
All
in
right.
Syria.
I want to bring in Scott.
That is what I condemn, and that is what the globe condemns. And inside the United States, you can talk all you want, and you can
He's a
convince
political
Christian
prisoner at
Zionists
best.
who think that Christ supports genocide. You can convince them that what you're saying makes sense. But outside of the United States, people are seeing what's going on in Gaza
I can't imagine how
every day.
fearful you must be of your
have
government.
no
Okay, let me. I want to bring in Scott. Let's Scott. Hey, guys, I want to bring in Scott.
Yeah, before we get into Scott, I mean, like he made really great points. Number one, the propagations from the West towards Iran have been, there's countless propagations from the overthrow of the Shah being overthrown. Then they put Khamenei in there, and that was a whole coup that was obviously backed by the CIA. Now we know Jimmy Carter took charge because the Shah was growing. At that time, they were saying that economically Iran was doing really well. There was even talks about setting up a nuclear program, and the West always wanted to neutralize any country in the Middle East that shows some semblance of improvement or any type of power over Israel. That's just the reality of it, because they fear that, or they have this irrational fear that the Islamists are going to take over one day, and that could be the end of their colony, their project that has been created since 1948 by these the same elitists that are funding all these wars, guys. So they did that. They overthrew the Shah. Then they started a war with they funded Saddam to start a war with Iran, and back in the 90s, Saddam was like a hero in the West. They were painting him as like, not necessarily a hero, but they were painting him in a good light. This guy's standing up against Khomeini, and then you find out, and when more details come in in regards to the Gulf War, the intelligence agencies were funding both sides of the conflict, both Iran, the Iranian regime, and Iraq. So there's a constant sponsor this organization, backstab them, sponsor this organization, backstab them, sponsor this organization, backstab them. Constant meddling in other people's affairs, and the major goal is to keep these countries neutralized, non-threatening, poor, and under the control of the Western hegemony in the Middle East. Them along with, the traitors, the Gulf Arabs. So, I mean, it's just, there's no denying the fact that the West has been meddling in their affairs for a long time. Okay? And that's just what it is. They're against that. The Iranians are seeing that this has become a problem. Okay? And there's constant fake propaganda. There's a lot of misinformation. There's the shedding them into the light of, there's a dictatorship going on there. People are being slaughtered. Crazy stuff.
Making America healthy again is all the rage, and many people are inspired to put their fitness first again. That's why I'm excited to play you a clip from Dave Smith, who was on my show recently, and he said this afterwards.
If Donald Trump actually does launch a war in Iran, not only will I not support it, I will apologize for the rest of my life for voting for the guy. I have loyalty to my principles and my country and my family.
Now, that's adding to the voice of Tucker Carlson and others on the right. There's no doubt that I think if Donald Trump was to attack Iran, it would not have widespread support on the Republican side. In fact, you could see large numbers of Republicans and conservative commentators criticizing that move, which makes it quite a perilous political decision for Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, especially considering how it's likely to play out. But I could just say thank goodness for Dave Smith and for Tucker Carlson and for the rest of the people on the MAGA right and the America First right who know what America First means. And it doesn't mean Israel instead. It means American national interests. And a war with Iran is not an American national interest whatsoever. Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith are both 100% right about that. And man, I got to tell you, I almost voted for Trump, Pierce. And especially when I heard that guy, Jack Smith, filed new charges in the middle of October, I was like, no, that's it. I'm voting Republican. I can't stand. The Democrats deserve to be punished like they just burned Waco yesterday. I despise them. And I almost did, but I couldn't do it. And the reason why is because Trump is so beholden to Zionism and Israel. And it just is such, and we know this from the last time that he was in office, it is such a huge flaw in making America great and putting America first is Israel instead. And there's just no question that our anti-Iran policy is born in Tel Aviv. Our friend here mentioned the Iranian Revolution, 1979. Well, that egg was on the face of Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. And he was the one, just as much as Carter, who was humiliated by the Iranian Revolution and the hostage crisis and the rest. Absolutely. But by 1993, the mean old Ayatollah Khomeini was dead. The new Ayatollah was in. They had a reformist president named Rafsanjani who was all about trying to kiss up to America. And Brzezinski said, we should build an oil pipeline from the Caspian Basin across Iran to the Persian Gulf, that way to make money and also to begin to warm up relations with Iran. Let bygones be bygones. And according to Steve Levine in his book on the pipeline wars, and according to the Washington Post, it was the Israel lobby back in 1993 that vetoed this warming of relations with the United States. And Brzezinski lost that battle. Instead, they famously made the BTC pipeline, cutting out Iran and Russia both. And so, and then on top of that, it was Yitzhak Shamir's advisor, Martin Indyk, who came in, and this is in Bill Clinton's first year, and said, where Clinton wanted to try to normalize relations with Iraq and Iran. It was the Israelis that insisted on the dual containment policy, which said Iraq is so weak because you just beat it up in Iraq War I, that now Iraq isn't powerful enough to balance against Iran. So now America has to stay in Saudi Arabia to bomb Iraq and to blockade Iraq and enforce the sanctions also against Iran throughout the 1990s. And Pierce, as I'm sure you know, this is the primary cause of the September 11th attack. This is what caused America, Britain, and Saudi Arabia's terrorist mercenaries to turn against the United States, was bombing Iraq from bases in Saudi Arabia, a policy insisted upon by the Israelis. And it was also, of course, Israel's merciless violence against the people of Palestine and Lebanon that caused Egyptian engineering students studying in Hamburg.
That's not accurate. But my man, this guy is spitting, man.
Volunteer for a Saudi to kamikaze our towers as revenge for what Israel was doing.
You haven't looked at the writings of Osama bin Laden and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind behind 9/11.
I can't hear what you're saying. I wasn't done talking yet. What?
Hold on. No. Well, I don't care if you were not done. I listened to you for a long time. Go off on something that's not factually accurate. So Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind 9/11, if you look at what he has said, he would say what you just said is not accurate. And that's the guy that masterminded 9/11.
That's what he said.
Go look at everything that he said. That he said a lot more than that. And I'm sorry that it's not as simplistic as you're trying to make it out to be. Osama bin Laden's own writings. Osama bin Laden's own writings disagree with your simplistic way of describing this. But Piers, let me go back to the core issue here, which is today and now. I'm not in favor of invading Iran. I'm in favor of making sure we do what we have to do to make sure they do not have a nuclear weapon, because Iran cannot be trusted with a nuclear weapon, full stop. We know this from centuries of what they have done. Again, let me finish what I'm saying, and then you can disagree. They're weeks away from having what you need for a nuclear bomb. I believe.
By the way, they've been saying that for over 6 years, that they're 2 more weeks and they got a bomb, and they're in the National Proliferation Treaty or whatever it is, where they're declaring that they're a non-nuclear state. They've only enriched up to 60%, which is the international limit. They're not looking to build a bomb. This is for peaceful means. And Trump pulled out the deal, and he continues to pressure them. Oh, they're going to build a nuclear bomb. We have to go in and invade, just like they did with Saddam Hussein. Oh, he has chemical weapons. Somehow, Iraq's going to launch the chemical weapons all the way, and it's going to hit New York City. And one day our kids are going to be, man, it's the same propaganda, the same bullshit. Everybody's waking up. And the sick part, like the part that I'm like, scared of now, is that, well, not scared, but like, usually in these times of when they want the American public to turn and become more patriotic and, support a war, like in the Middle East, they cause a crazy 9/11 type event, right? To gather the American public. Oh, let's all get together and blow a bunch of villagers that have nothing to do with this, whatever conspired event that they're possibly going to come up with, which, these people are sick, right? Like, we do know what happened with 9/11. It's been well documented that there were rogue elements in the CIA and in connection with the Mossad. And so we're not going to get into too much detail with that, but those of you know. So this is what we're dealing with, man. These and this guy's over here. He's a poster child for. I think a lot of these people are getting paid because they can't. There's no way that this guy is that stupid to buy all that bullshit. Or maybe he is. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's so easy to trick the American public, guys. There's just because they obviously they keep us very ignorant and uninformed, right? And you got people in the military that served in Iraq. They come out and say they don't even know exactly what they did. Like, it was that whole thing was a blur. It was like they still can't rationalize why they were there. You know what I mean?
Iran, when they chant death to America and death to Israel. And the idea that somehow this is, this isolationist idea that some have in the MAGA group, and I disagree with them, that this is the fault of a connection between Israel and America. Look at who is chanting death to America and death to Israel, who refers to the big Satan, the little Satan. You want to get two people together? Then talk about them that way, because they will get together. So the fault of this allegiance between Israel and America is the fault of the terrorist organization, which is Iran. And when you chant it and you do it and you back it and you aid it and you fund it, the terrorism, you get the situation we're in right now. America and Israel did not create this situation. The damn terrorists did it in Iran, and they've been doing it for decades.
Okay, well, what's funny is
I want to just pause before. But hang on, Scott. Hang on, Scott, because we're just got another contributor joining us briefly. Elika Lebon, the British-Iranian attorney, who's no stranger to uncensored. Welcome back to you,
Piers. You did not, dude. Piers, I'm convinced Piers does this stuff for views, because this is the most unqualified individual to talk about. Like, her talking points are so easy to debunk. Let's see if Marandi has a feast with this one, bro.
It seems to be a pretty critical moment here for Iran, for what America may do with Iran. Donald Trump making it very clear if these talks
Piers is a fucking clout chaser,
they're
guys.
going to have about
Piers is a
Iran
clout chaser.
agreeing not to have a nuclear weapon fail, then all hell's going to break loose. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, first, I just want to address some of the things that have been covered already, because we're seeing already a lot of hypocrisy. We're talking about, ethno supremacy. We're talking about apartheid, completely ignoring the religious supremacy that exists in Iran, completely ignoring the gender apartheid that exists in Iran. I'm sorry, you cannot be against apartheid when you're in support of gender apartheid. And as the Ben mentioned,
Here
this
comes
is
a radical feminist.
the person that's not speaking with free.
All the women in Iran are oppressed, and they don't choose to wear the hijab. When they've done a poll, and the majority of them choose to wear the hijab and are completely content with it. It's only one or two instances, and they propagandize the whole thing. They gaslight it and put it all over national media news that these women are getting beat for not putting the hijab on, when it's completely false. And people have traveled and confirmed that all that shit is false. But let's keep
free
on
speech,
going.
and even if he had free speech, he would not be condemning
rhetoric.
this government, because he served as an advisor to this government and as a member of the IRGC. So you have a dual motivation not to be honest, and this conversation cannot be honest with a person of that stature. And then you go to the gentleman who starts talking about how all of this sectarian violence and terrorism is because of the US and Western interference. This is straight up jihadist propaganda, because even in Osama bin Laden's letter to America, everything he said was a lie. He talked about the interference in Yemen here, there, and the other. He was the one that was blowing up people in Yemen. He is the jihadist. He is the one that wanted to destroy the Middle East. And by using Western imperialism as a cudgel to expand their own Islamist expansionism and to support that, to use that as propaganda, is to literally proliferate jihadist propaganda. And so, no, I don't respect any of these opinions that have been offered. In terms of what's going on now with the potential war with Iran, this is a direct result of failing to support the people's uprising, failing to properly enforce sanctions that have strengthened the regime, that have financially strengthened the regime, that have increased its networks, its exports, its complicated banking systems that allow it to move money from these oil exports, from smuggling, all of these ways that have enriched the regime by abandoning the Iranian people, who could have and would have taken out the regime for itself so that we wouldn't have to get to this position of war. So yeah, you can be anti-war, but you cannot be pro-jihadist and pro-terror and blame everything that the terrorists do on the actions of the West. And by doing so, you are fueling into jihadist propaganda, and not just fueling into jihadist propaganda, you are playing directly into the racism of low expectations by assuming that Middle Eastern people are completely incapable of evil without the devil made them do it justification, that the West encouraged them to do something that they've been doing for 1400 years. So if it's Western imperialism that caused jihadism, what caused jihadism in the 7th century when it expanded across the entire Middle East and North Africa, which is an imperialist expansion? It is not from Western imperialism. Western imperialism may have helped. It is an indigenous movement from the Arabian Peninsula out into the Middle East. That is imperialism.
All right, Professor Marandi, you've been listening to that. What is your response to Ali Kilabon?
Well, Piers, you definitely don't want anyone from Iran to talk. That's obvious. You bring in guests after guests.
Well, why are you on the show?
And then
you're
you
literally
have
an invited guest on my show.
Medication. No, you don't let me talk. If I'm not
my
going to be interrupted,
is freedom, brother. Maybe you should have some in your life. That's my medication. It's called freedom.
Well, no, to be clear, hang on. To be clear, Professor Marandi, the only difference between this appearance and your previous ones is that always before you've appeared on your own. And this time we thought it would be more interesting to have other panelists who don't share your views, who might have their own insight into what happens in Iran. And it seems to me, hang on. And it seems, but it seems to me, though, Professor Marandi, you don't like being challenged by other people, do you?
Oh my!
That's the reality.
Snake ass. Oh man, Piers Morgan is a little he's a pimple on your ass, bro. He just, do you see that shit? He just flipped this on Marandi, and Marandi should just, I was hoping Professor Marandi just starts hitting her with the, let's see if he does, man. If he starts hitting her with the facts he could shut both of them up, man.
I'm from Iran, sir. I'm from Iran. But let me tell you.
No, you're not. You're from the UK.
Something. Let me tell you something. I'm Iranian.
You're just proving my point.
You're British.
Listen
You're
to
just
me.
proving my point. I'm not supposed to talk.
I'm echoing the voice of the Iranian people inside
I'm the
Iran
token
who cannot
Oriental.
sit where you're sitting. They cannot
Pierce,
sit where you're sitting.
You're not achieving anything by this. You have prevented me from speaking.
All right, let's allow.
From the very beginning.
All right, Alika, let Professor Marandi now respond. Professor Marandi,
but I haven't finished my sentence for him to respond.
By the way, Professor Marandi came out and said that he didn't know that he was going to have both of these guests on there, so Piers kind of pretty much fucked them over.
Well, wait a minute, Alika. Don't talk over him. Let him respond.
Yeah, so
Professor Marandi.
I'm glad that they've proven my point, and that was the objective all along. You have a token Iranian to pretend that you have an open debate, and then you bring in people one after another, and I have not interrupted a single person. I have not interrupted anyone.
That's also a lie.
But anyway, just to respond, first of all, we all know who created Al-Qaeda. We all know who created ISIS. We all know who created the tragedy in Afghanistan. It actually began before the Soviet Union invaded. Brzezinski proposed a plan to Carter, and that's when things began to roll. And the 1980s was the decade where Al-Qaeda was on the rise. God. Then in Syria, we had Operation Timber Sycamore. Your American guest speaks about who do I condemn terrorism. And Operation Timber Sycamore, the terrorists which they supported in Libya and destroyed Libya, which today is a destroyed country, those terrorists were taken to Turkey and also from Jordan to bring down the Syrian government. And Tulsi Gabbard, who is in Trump's administration, she said that we supported these terrorist groups, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which now have taken Syria. These are not the words of an Iranian. Other than that, what we're seeing in Gaza, you've gone over this many times. This did not begin on October the 7th. This has been going on for decades.
Let me ask you a question. Are you saying that Iran has never supported ISIS or Al-Qaeda? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that Iran has never aided or abetted ISIS or Al-Qaeda, and somehow ISIS and Al-Qaeda has operated outside of the sphere or influence or money or weaponry coming from Iran? Are you insane, or is this just, are there people in the room pointing guns at you now? And this is the problem.
Dude, you're a fucking moron. There's absolutely no connection to Iran, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. Theologically, they don't align. They're actually enemies. One is Sunni, one is Shia. The people in Syria, you could say they're similar. They have a similar ideology to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who are in control now, and they're completely against Iran. They wouldn't align they're actually supporting Israel now to try to overthrow the Iranian regime. So it's like, dude, get your facts together. You're a fucking idiot, right? Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, they have nothing to, I don't know about, Hamas, but I know definitely the Shia militias don't have anything to do with these organizations, right? And this guy's just so ignorant to the fact. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. They think that, they paint everybody with the same brush over there. And it's just easier for the Americans to digest and not understand the complexity of the different sides and, people who are governing these areas and stuff like that. So again, this is just a testament to the ignorance.
Propaganda you have to share.
Here's Mr. Morgan, the Defense Intelligence Agency document of 2012.
Have you
and the
ever?
Head of that agency
are you
was
telling
General
me
Michael
that Iran
Flynn.
has never supported Al-Qaeda or ISIS operators? Yes or no?
Declares very clearly who supported ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria.
Dude,
and that they were
I've never watched that. I've never watched a hostage video like this in my life. This is really sad. Like, I didn't realize it was this bad for you guys in Iran, but man, it's bad.
Listen, the fact that matters, this guy,
you're a fucking idiot.
Ben. No, let me just answer. It's not bad. It's not bad.
As I said before, if you go and look at the documents,
you said you don't interrupt.
The Defense Intelligence Agency, 2012.
You're the one interrupting me, lady. What the hell?
General Michael
Professor Marandi, you are interrupting the female panelist.
You're interrupting. Okay, so
I did say you didn't interrupt. So let us speak.
Let me finish.
I haven't
You're right that it's
speaking.
Because you interrupted me when you started speaking again. You are right that it's so bad in Iran. Okay, I want to clarify this. You're so right that it's bad in Iran that the actual people that represent the people of Iran cannot come to this show. And this is a person that enjoys the privilege of siding with the regime, and therefore his voice can be heard. But what you're wrong about is the idea that he would criticize this regime if he had the chance. It doesn't matter if he had freedom of speech. He would not criticize this regime because he is a supporter of this regime. And that's evident in his ideologies, as with the gentleman beside him. Both of these people are people who indirectly or directly support the regime by whitewashing their crimes and just counterfactual narratives about how the West...
No, I mean, this guy's definitely, I've heard him, I've seen some of his work. He speaks out against all of this shit. He does not support, the one next to Marandi doesn't support the regime. And not even Professor Marandi he's actually, in Farsi, he's made some criticisms towards the regime and nothing's happened to him. Versus you have countless journalists and war analysts who have been raided in by the FBI, right? Just for saying, like, for standing up for the Gazans who are being genocided. There's countless cases of that happening, right?
Created Islamist groups when Islamism has existed for 1400 years, and the revival of that was after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. That's when the Islamic revivalist movement, and that was nothing to do with Western imperialism. That was the idea that they wanted to restore the Islamic caliphate. And everything that they've done in furtherance of that has been behind the pretext of anti-Western imperialism. You talk about how, yes, Carter absolutely did so much damage by not just supporting the Taliban in Afghanistan, but also bringing this regime to power by supporting Khomeini, by fomenting anti-Shah sentiments to galvanize the 1979 revolution. But what you're ignoring is that while the West facilitated this through imperialism, those factions existed because it is a rudiment of the Middle East. And to deny that is to deny the agency and ability of Middle Eastern people to engage in the same evil, if not more, as the West. And if you deny that, you are not being honest.
All right, let me go here for
Scott
a minute.
Horton.
What we have here is an obvious and basic aggressive refusal to distinguish between the Sunnis and the Shiites in the current wars over there. In Iraq War II, 4,000 Americans died fighting against the Sunni-based insurgency that was led by al-Qaeda in Iraq, was the vanguard of that. And they fought on the side of the Shiite alliance, which was also backed by Iran. That was Skiri, Dawa, and the Sodderists. Now, when our friend here says that Iran backed guys that killed the Americans in Iraq War II, that wasn't backing al-Qaeda and the radical Sunnis against America. That was their support for Muqtada al-Sadr, who America was fighting the whole war for, but also for a short time in 2004 and in 2007 turned on him and attacked him. And 500 Americans died fighting Iraqi Shiites, not Iranians. Right. And as I demonstrate in my book Enough Already, I got 10 different sources of American reporters there where American soldiers found these factories where they were making these EFP roadside bombs in Iraq, being made by Iraqis, okay? So no, Iran did not back al-Qaeda. They backed the same side America backed against al-Qaeda in Iraq War II. And then you talk about Syria. You say that Iran backed al-Qaeda.
The question I asked was not about the question I asked.
Come on, man.
But you're taking me out of context. I said, no, hold on. You're taking what I said out of context. So I'm gonna finish. What I said was, are you telling me? No, you're taking me out of context. So I'm going to say it again because you clearly just listen. It'll take 9 seconds. It'll take 9 seconds.
America.
What I said was, Are you telling me that Iran has never backed Al-Qaeda or ISIS? Period. Full stop. For the time that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been alive, has Iran
Holy
not
shit, this guy's a fucking moron. Like, I thought, like, I was trying to give him some type of, I thought, like, he was just on payroll. He can't, like, he was trying to misinform the public, but this guy's an actual legit moron. Like, does he not know that Hezbollah and Iran are not allies of Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Like, that's what the whole Syrian war was about. And I know there's like a lot of Americans I'm not expecting people to know this shit, because obviously it's a very complicated situation, but dude, don't come on here misinforming and propagandizing the public, right? And you could easily be refuted by someone who has just basic knowledge of what went on in those regions, so
them.
Geez.
I do know. I know that Iran has backed ISIS and Al-Qaeda at different points. Now you can go off on your tirade and sell your book. I'm fine with it.
Iran backed Hezbollah. Oh, for God's sake, man. I'm going to finish this. I swear to God. Iran backed the Syrian government and Hezbollah and Russia against Al-Qaeda and ISIS in the Syrian war. You just don't even know whose side who is on here, and you're trying to lecture me about it.
I didn't go to an exact time that you're talking about. I said in the lifetime,
not the Shiites.
I said in the lifetime of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, has Iran ever backed them? The answer is yes.
No.
I'm not talking about in this exact moment that you're talking about. I said over the lifetime. Over the lifetime of...
Right. ISIS has done suicide attacks inside Iran and Lebanon, for the matter of fact. Shiite strongholds, like, holy
Iran,
shit.
You're telling me on TV right now that Iran has never backed ISIS or Al-Qaeda. You're insane.
This guy thinks if he yells, he's gonna make a point. Like,
no, joke if you want to look at me and tell me that Iran has never backed them.
No,
it's bullshit. Golly, man. Like, sell your book, but I'm sorry. It's stupid.
Even she's like, this guy's a fucking idiot. Holy shit.
Let's take your
Just
question.
Look at who does suicide attacks inside Iran. It's ISIS that does suicide attacks inside Iran.
Let's take your statement as it is. You said that the regime in Iran backs Hezbollah and it backed Assad. What was that backing for? Can you clarify? In general, why does the regime in Iran back Hezbollah in Lebanon as an act of imperialism and Assad in Syria act as an act of imperialism? Explain.
Well, I mean, Hezbollah.
Okay, Professor Marandi, maybe you can respond to that.
Nothing to say? No. I want this question.
His ghostwriter didn't write that part of the book, apparently.
No. I want you to answer the question.
Look.
Go on, tell me.
Hezbollah came.
I'll answer the question for you if you can't answer.
Yes.
This guy got a McDonald's coffee. Oh, this guy got his McCafe on, bro. Oh my God. See, it's sad because these are the people that Netanyahu and these type of individuals, Zelensky, Putin, these type of people run circles around these American officials. Because they're just like this guy, right? And they just run circles around them guys. They're even running circles around Trump as we speak. Putin ran a circle around Trump, man. He's playing him like a fiddle with the ceasefire situation, right? Oh shit, bro.
Perfectly willing to answer the question here. Hezbollah was created in reaction to the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in the early 1980s. They didn't even come into existence until after the Beirut bombing of 1983, when the Israelis invaded to attack the PLO, but they mistreated the poor Lebanese Shiites who had nothing to do with the PLO. And force them into resistance. Now, that's not to justify everything that Hezbollah has done, but that's the true origin of their party.
That's not the true origin.
And then, so it's true that Iran has supported them since then. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. As
I told a new ghostwriter, man.
No.
That's the reason that America's intervened in the Middle East is to try to break the Iran-Syria-Hezbollah alliance, and they keep only making it powerful.
Because it is a dangerous terrorist alliance. What does it have to take to get through to you? The way that Hezbollah was created was that after the establishment of the regime in 1979, the IRGC asked for a corridor through Syria to get to Lebanon, and then it started its ideological exportation into Lebanon in order to create an Islamic Republic in Lebanon. This is an act of imperialism. And Nasrallah himself came out and said that the objective of Hezbollah through the regime in Iran was to create a second Islamic Republic in Iran. And Nasrallah himself
sounds like Israel's
said
problem.
Don't interrupt me. Nasrallah himself said that the Hezbollah's budget eats, drinks, and breathes from the regime in Iran. And what does it do in exchange? It's quid pro quo.
They don't exist without them.
Is to act as the front line in the regime's proxy war against Israel. Okay, so it's a mutually beneficial relationship that is rooted in pure imperialism and Islamist expansion. And if you support that, you are an imperialist.
Which explains perfectly why America supports the Bin Ladenites against the Shiites, because that's what Israel wants. Even though the Bin Ladenites are the ones that knocked our towers down, not Hezbollah. Israel does not want to be attacked
by Hezbollah and the regime in Iran. Correct.
Hezbollah didn't knock the towers down. That was the Sunnis that did that.
What has that got to do with Israel?
Okay, I want to end by asking Professor Marandi.
Israel is the victim of
Hezbollah aggression. Listen, all right, time out. I want to ask Professor Marandi to finish this the way we started, which is that Donald Trump has laid down a very clear directive. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Do you believe Iran will develop a nuclear weapon in spite of what the president is saying?
Well, Piers, first of all, I think your audience can see who is calm and who is irrational, who's logical and who's illogical. I think enough has been said. But I just want to point out a couple of things before I respond to that. One is that it seems as if it is Iran that has occupied Palestine. It is Iran that occupied Iraq. Iran occupied Afghanistan. Iran occupies Syria. Iran occupies Libya. Iran occupies parts of
You just support all the terrorists that kill innocent people there. You're a good point. You don't occupy. You just support the terrorists that do the work.
It seems to me that Hezbollah, which was created in 1982, was rightly pointed out, it was a national liberation organization that expelled the Israeli regime from Lebanon, which occupied the capital of Lebanon. And Israel existed. The resistance.
Terrorists.
This is what terrorists sound like, guys.
The resistance in Palestine.
They occupied. They went up all the way to Beirut. So that's like almost half of Lebanon.
Palestine
occupied by Israel.
Existed. This is going to come to a shock to these two people. But the resistance in Palestine
go get your pittance from your regime. You did your job today, okay? You're going to live to see another day of propaganda. Good job.
And again, these the reason they're in, cutting them off and doing all this extra shit is because they know like they just got horrifically embarrassed. I mean, the guy in this dude, I don't know who the fuck this guy is, but he just got absolutely embarrassed, guys, by Scott Horton. He just destroyed all his talking points. He didn't make, he just showed that he doesn't have enough information about the region to speak about what's really going on.
Resistance in Palestine began before the revolution in Iran. But, these two...
But can you answer my question?
We're talking about Hamas. That was
he can't answer your question, Piers, because he'll be disappeared if he answers your question.
All right, everyone, time out. I want to ask Professor Marandi. Professor Marandi, answer my question. Do you believe Iran will develop a nuclear weapon in spite of what Donald Trump has said?
Iran has said from day one that it is not developing a nuclear weapon, and that is what U.S. intelligence agencies have been saying for years. And just recently, Tulsi Gabbard's organization has repeated the same thing over again, that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. What is happening is that the United States is being pushed by the Zionist lobby and the Israeli regime towards confrontation, a confrontation that it will not win. No one will win on this planet. But in any case, the Iranians have a right to a peaceful nuclear program. The Iranians will continue to have a peaceful nuclear program. And if the United States behaves rationally, and not like these two
You're a
guests of
terrorist
yours.
organization.
If the United States behaves rationally at the negotiating table, there can be an agreement. We already had an agreement, Pierce, in 2015, and the Iranians were the ones that abided by the agreement.
And then
Obama
you supported
violated
more
the
terrorism
agreement,
when we gave you billions of dollars from the Obama administration.
Calm down. And no, it
You
was
proliferated terrorism from the dollars we sent you, which is stupid from Obama.
The Iranians abided by the nuclear deal. The Iranians abided by the nuclear deal.
Seriously.
Obama violated it. Then Trump tore up the deal. So, and even after, Pierce,
we tore it up because it was a worthless deal because you guys were still sponsoring terrorism.
Even after, calm down, even after Trump tore up the deal, the Iranians fully implemented the deal for a year. And then for the second year, the Iranians decreased their commitment stage by stage, which took another year. So 2 years after
Pierce,
Trump
if you want to know why
imposed
Trump's
maximum price
considering
sanctions,
bombing Iran's nuclear
Iran
site, this is why.
then began to restart its nuclear program.
He may have no choice.
So who is at fault here? Iran or the United States?
All right, we're going to leave it there. It was a fiery debate.
Wait, let me just say,
Scott, quickly.
The professor is
Very
correct
quickly.
that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, they just released their threat assessment. Anyone can look it up at dni.gov.
Right.
And their new threat assessment says Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. They have not made the political decision to begin to make a nuclear weapon. Your other guest says that they're just such a crazy, irresponsible power, but quite factually, they mastered the
Leon
fuel
Panetta
cycle
just said it accurately.
20 years ago.
They are weeks away from being able to create one.
20 years ago, and they still have
I'm not a big fan of Panetta, by the way.
Yet. They still haven't made an atom bomb, even though they've been able to for 20 years. And that shows, again, they have a latent nuclear deterrent, and they've been so far responsible with it. And we could have another nuclear deal, and we could normalize relations with Iran. It doesn't mean it's not a tyranny.
Why would you want to normalize relations with a terrorist regime? Why do you want to normalize relations with the terrorist regime?
You see what I'm talking about? This clown here, this lady here, she's living all the way in Britain. And there's a lot of these people that are exiled or they're expat Iranian citizens, whatever the fuck. I think she was born in the UK, but they run around wanting Israel and the U.S. They advocate, they want Israel and the U.S. to fight their war in Iran for regime change, right? So they always constantly want to stir up, like they're always for military action on Iran, regardless of who's affected, what damages, what global economic crisis the world could fall in, if Iran decides to attack the oil fields in the Gulf states. No matter the cost of life, they're always advocating for war. Like they would prefer these deals fall and then the Americans go and fight their fucking battle for them so they can return back to Iran without the regime intact and the Khomeini regime. But and this is how sick these people are, guys.
Just keep killing.
They say death to America all the time.
No,
they
you
kill
don't care about
American
Israel.
soldiers. They target American soldiers right now. They do it.
Hang on. Let me get my
Pierce,
word
let me
in
be
here.
clear. This guy's not conservative or MAGA. He's a lefty. I don't want him to masquerade as a conservative any longer. We are not the same.
Libertarian Institute.
He's
dude.
a hardcore
leftist. Let me answer your question.
Yeah, you are. If you're a conservative, I don't want to be a conservative anymore.
I'm a Shiite too.
So
no,
listen,
you're not. You're just a liberal.
All right, you know what?
Be honest about who you are.
You know what? My ears.
I hate liberals
All
more
right,
than
my ears are beginning. My ears can't take any more of this.
Let me
All right,
respond
my
to
ears
this.
can't take any more of this.
Makes two of us.
No, we're done.
Makes two of
My
us,
eardrums
Pierce.
are about to explode, so we've reached the end. Thank you to my panel for a spirited and lively debate. And we ended on a point of mass disagreement, which probably sums up where we are with this whole debate to start with. Thank you all very much.
All right, yeah, this shit was, I don't know. It's just fucked up that, these are the type of people that are having to negotiate and deal with the Iranian issue, the issue in Europe. They have this type of mentality, guys. It's just fucking unreal. And the thing is, they might not even understand the geographic complexities in the geopolitics when it comes to, you know, even the Ukrainian situation, the Middle Eastern situation. But they're over here thinking they can wave their wand or talk people into compromising, as if, you know, America is still like this mediator that everybody's so fond of, you know. I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't want to see war. I don't want us to go to war for any other nation or colony that is not of any benefit to America at all, or for people like her who are ex-Iranian expats and they want us to do their dirty work for them, you know, which is, you know, which everybody should be against, you know. Anyways, man, let me know what you guys think in the comment sections down below. This shit was heated. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.